So next up, podcast listeners, we have the dumbest bill in America. And do we have a lead up? Mr. Producer. Of course. And here it is.
Dum 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 dum.
And it's the dumbest bill in America, and it is banning single-family homes in California. Yes, you got that right. Banning single-family homes in California, gutting the suburbs, importing the ghetto to the suburbs. In Cal Matters magazine, right? It's an online magazine. It gives you all of the updates to what is happening in the California legislature and also with the recall election and elsewhere. Obviously, it is a left-leaning magazine, to say the least. It says, California's housing crisis. How much difference will a zoning bill make? So, on a few of the vast verdant lawns in East Sacramento, one of the capital city's most popular and expensive neighborhoods, yellow and black yard signs urge passersby to save neighborhoods and keep Sacramento livable and diverse. The message symbolizes a big battle taking place at the state capitol only a few miles away. Whether to do away with the sacrosanct single-family neighborhoods to address California's housing crisis. Think about this, podcast listeners. California has a housing crisis, and there are a whole bunch of reasons why they have this housing crisis, not the least of which is the fact that California is just too crowded because of over illegal immigration, right? Illegal immigration shouldn't occur to begin with, but they've allowed it for so long, and it's been so out of control for so long, there are too many people that live there. And the quality of life has declined, and there aren't enough places to live, and the housing prices have shot through the roof. So if you live in a suburb in California, well, watch out, because Senate Bill 9, one of several measures, just like Senate Bill 9, alluded to by those signs, would technically allow as many as 2 duplexes, 2 houses with attached units or any combination thereof, capped at 4 units on a single family lot throughout California without local government approval. So in other words, if you live in a community, it's a subdivision, and the subdivision has single family homes, and you've worked your entire life to buy a house in the subdivision, and you've got a nice little backyard, a nice little front yard, you got a grill in the back and so forth. All of your neighbors have the same thing because they're all single family homes in your subdivision. Senate Bill 9 would supersede the local government zoning and say, you know what? Anybody in your neighborhood at any time can convert their single family home into 4 apartment units. So let's say you have a 2-story home. You can add a door in the front. So now instead of a single door in the front of your house, you've got like 2 doors because you have 2 apartments on the first floor and then maybe 2 doors in the back so that those 2 doors in the back have staircases that take you up to the 2 apartments on the second floor. You no longer have a community with single family homes. You have a community where you have some single family homes that are left, and then you also have duplexes. You have some homes that have been converted into apartment buildings. And Senate Bill 9 says, not only is that okay, but you don't even have a say in the matter. You spent your entire life buying this house that you've always wanted, that you want to live in for the rest of your life and retire in because it's your American dream to have this single family home, to have a small yard, to have the grill in the backyard and the dog with a fenced in yard. And then you have a neighbor that turns their single family home into an apartment complex and they import the ghetto, which is exactly what this bill is about. This bill is about gutting your ability to live the way you want because the progressives in California, the communists and the socialists don't think you should live the way you want to live. But they're doing this. They're passing this bill on under the guise of equity. And they're also passing the bill under the guise of, we don't have enough affordable housing. It's just not, there's not enough affordable housing. The bill would allow more building where it's now illegal with the intent of reducing California's fast rising home prices and increasing access to home ownership through a greater variety of options, according to State Senate leader Tony Atkins, a Democrat from San Diego who introduced the bill and a similar version of it in the past. To lessen concerns from the more than 100 cities and neighborhood groups that oppose the bill, well, of course, the cities and the neighborhoods oppose the bills in California because those cities are in control of the local zoning ordinance. Those cities get to decide now where houses go, what the density of that housing is, and where shops go and so forth. They're engaged in the planning of their communities. And if you notice, some communities are really nice. And many times, really nice communities developed not because of money, they develop because of really good planning and really qualified elected officials who thought way ahead about how that planning was going to be rolled out. And they did so 30, 40, 50 years ago. And then as time passed, people thought to themselves, that neighborhood that seemed like it was in the middle of nowhere, that neighborhood that, and that town that seemed like it just wasn't cool. I actually think it's cool. And I've always kind of liked it, but I'm actually ready to move there. Well, California is saying to those cities and towns, you don't get to decide any of that for yourselves anymore. So all those cities and towns are going, this ain't happening. We're opposing this. This is ridiculous. This idea of gutting our ability to determine what is a single family home and whether or not there can be multifamily houses in a single family subdivision. So Atkins, the state senator on Monday, added a few amendments that give local jurisdictions some veto power over units that threaten public health and safety and curtail potential speculation. The bill, approved by the Senate in May and two Assembly policy committees in June, made it out of the Assembly Appropriations Committee on August 23rd and was approved by the full Assembly on August 26th on a 44-16 vote. So in other words, this bill has made it out of the state Senate and the state Assembly, and the governor is obviously going to sign it. And you can only hope that he won't, but this is Gavin Newsom we're talking about, right? It's equity. It's not fair that people should be living in a single family home in a really nice subdivision while others have to rent houses. Supporters decrying mistruths by opponents that the bill would end single-family zoning said the legislation would help ease the affordable housing shortage. Assembly member Alex Lee, a San Jose Democrat, said young people like him are having to give up their dream of home ownership. I mean, look, this goes back to a fundamental American principle, and that is when you're ready to go out on your own and you're moving out of your parents' house and you're 18, or you're moving in out of college and you're 21 or 22, and you're going to go rent your first place, you typically rent where you can afford. And I'm going to speak for myself and say this, right? I had to rent where I could afford. And where I could afford was not necessarily where I wanted to be. And since it was not necessarily where I wanted to ultimately be, it made me work harder so that I could eventually buy a place or rent a place in an area where I wanted to live. And there's no better motivator than that. Not to mention, folks, you don't have to stay in California, but these same politicians that are passing this law, the Senate Bill 9, these are the very same people who have had open borders and they've ruined the state because it's overpopulated and there aren't enough housing units. And housing, supply and demand. Housing prices have gone way up. There are too many people. And what do you expect to happen when you have people running your state who don't know what they're doing? So on August 30th, the Senate voted 28-7 to concur on the House amendments, and they sent the bill to Governor Gavin Newsom's desk. The League of California Cities urged Newsom to veto what it called flawed legislation. SB 9 empowers developers, usurps local democracy, silences community voices, and fails to guarantee affordable housing, Carolyn Coleman, the league's CEO, said in a statement. So what's interesting about this is now this bill is on Gavin Newsom's desk, and Gavin Newsom is being recalled. And a lot of the individuals who are against this bill, they're not Republicans. Like, I'm talking about regular people living in these subdivisions and regular people living in these towns. They're not elected people. They're Democrats, many of them. In fact, most of them are, and they oppose this bill for that reason. This is why they oppose the bill. I mean, the bill is a giveaway to developers, right? Because a developer can now just walk into a subdivision and go, I don't need to get zoning for this. I can just turn houses into apartments in your beautiful subdivision. So it's a giveaway to developers, while at the same time, Gavin Newsom has got this concern over all of these Democrats who are upset with him anyway. And what does he do? Is he going to veto this bill, or is he going to sign it? And my guess is he's going to wait until after the recall election and probably sign it. But if you're in California and you're listening to this podcast, you know what you should do? You should call out Gavin Newsom on this, not only so that he can veto it prior to the recall election, but also so that Gavin Newsom can be on record finally doing something that is the right thing. But good old Gavin Newsom, he's going to always play that game, well, it's the big bad Republicans. They just don't want equity in housing. Equity in housing? What is that? What is that? Where I come from, you have an equal opportunity to buy something, but in order to be able to get there, you have to actually work for it. You actually have to save. You have to sacrifice to get there. Imagine that, ladies and gentlemen. You actually might have to sacrifice. And if you live in a place like San Francisco where the median price is $800,000, it may be high time to get the heck out of there. That's what I would recommend. Move to Texas. Tons of opportunity there to own a home. So anyway, banning single-family homes. That is the dumbest bill in America.